When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assumed office in 2023, one of his first pronouncements, whether a slip of the tongue or a deliberate policy decision, was the removal of the fuel subsidy. His justification was that the subsidy was a financial burden, benefiting only a privileged few, and he promised to redirect the funds to other sectors of the economy while increasing state allocations. Indeed, reports indicate that there was an increase in gross revenue following the subsidy removal. However, many Nigerians condemned the move, foreseeing the untold hardship it would bring, given the widespread corruption among politicians and their general disregard for the welfare of the people. For many, the fuel subsidy was the only tangible benefit they received from the government. Even under the subsidy scheme, corruption was rampant. Key players in the oil sector were accused of inflating Nigeria's daily fuel consumption figures, while others illegally exported subsidized fuel to neighboring countries for personal gain. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, was riddled with unaccountability and mismanagement. Instead of investigating the fraudulent practices within the subsidy system, the presidency opted for its outright removal, perhaps for reasons best known to those in power, though they claim the subsidy payment was eating deep into the nation purse. But government spending thereafter says otherwise. Following the removal of the subsidy, the government also allowed the naira to float in the foreign exchange market, leading to a systematic devaluation of the currency, which is today over $1 to $15.44. At the time this video was created, before President Tinubu took over power in May 2023, exchange rate was around 460 naira to 1 USD. Parallel market rate was between 730 naira to 760 naira per USD. This marked the beginning of severe economic hardship for Nigerians. As inflation soared and the cost of living became unbearable, the government continued to encourage citizens to endure the suffering, promising future relief while government officials continued to live their usual lavish lifestyle. Public frustration eventually led to protests in August 2024, with citizens expressing their grievances against the worsening economic situation. However, rather than addressing their concerns, counter-protesters were reportedly hired in some parts of the country to oppose the demonstrations. In a shocking turn of events, some protesters were shot at, while young demonstrators in the northern parts of Nigeria were arrested and charged with treason for hoisting the Russian flag. Despite claims that removing the fuel subsidy would save the country money, Nigeria has continued to accumulate debt. Reports indicate that the country's crude oil has been used for forward sales to service loans, with commitments extending up to 2030. This raises concerns about the financial future of the nation and the burden placed on future generations. Amidst the economic downturn, the government has continued to engage in lavish spending. Billions were allocated for the construction of a new vice president's lodge. The presidential fleet was upgraded, and lawmakers purchased approximately 9 SUVs, placing burden on scarce FX. They justified this decision by highlighting the poor condition of Nigerian roads, asserting that robust vehicles were necessary for lawmakers to effectively perform their duties. Laughable. There were also rumors about the purchase of a presidential yacht. Meanwhile, it took intense protests and prolonged negotiations by labor unions for the government to approve a meager 70,000 naira, which is just around $45–57 as minimum wage. It's interesting to note that many states are yet to commence payments of the new minimum wage. The voice of the people has been systematically silenced. Critics of the government are tracked, arrested, or subjected to online attacks by supporters of the regime. Essential services have also become increasingly unaffordable, with hikes in electricity, tariffs, and telecommunication costs as companies struggle to cope with rising operational expenses. Lawmakers who should act as a check on executive excesses appear to be in the pockets of the presidency. They routinely approve all government requests, including massive loan applications, budget allocations, and even the controversial declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State, without due scrutiny. Meanwhile, politicians continue to seek medical treatment abroad and send their children to elite foreign schools while neglecting Nigeria's healthcare and education sectors. It is ironic that they run to Western countries for medical care and vacations, yet fail to develop their own nation's infrastructure. However, the Nigerian people themselves are not entirely blameless. Many have been manipulated into supporting the very system that oppresses them. Politicians deliberately keep the masses impoverished, ensuring their continued dependence on handouts and palliatives. Law enforcement agencies, armed thugs, and financially empowered loyalists are used to suppress dissent and maintain the status quo. One might wonder when the people will rise against these injustices. For too long, Nigerians have remained passive. Those with the means to leave have opted for the Japa route, seeking better opportunities abroad. Others remain silent, either out of fear or resignation. They say there is light at the end of the tunnel. But with Nigerian politicians, not only extending the tunnel, but possibly switching off the light, one wonders if that light will ever be seen again. Don't forget to share your views in the comments section. Please like, share, and follow me.